at the really beginning of the opening ceremony yesterday, Chairman of the Arctic Circle, Mr. Grimson, explained prior to this Japan forum, Abu Dhabi forum was held in January, and the main theme of the Abu Dhabi forum was the third pole issue. And then we learned a lot, and then I myself learned a lot, and I really, felt the necessity to set up some sort of a good mechanism to support the program of third pole issues. And immediately, we, Sasakawa Peace Foundation, started to think about, together with Nippon Foundation, to do something, for this problem, because it's not just the glacier melting issues, but it will affect 1.9 billion people who depend on the water around Hindu Kush Himalayan area, and which all melting or flood and together with some other disaster happened. So we're gonna lose lots of people around there. So it's a big issue, and at a sort of humanitarian aid we need. And that's why I asked Pema to come to Japan to speak out this problem as much as possible, to let many people know this problem, and also let especially the media take these issues, and then we can more and more, collect the opinion and also help support for this issue. That's the reason we set up this session today. So, Pema, could you please start, presentation?
Thank you very much. And I would like to start by acknowledging President Grimson, the chair of the Arctic Circle, and Dr. Sakaguchi for getting me here and getting us here, me and my colleague, Dr. Rajesh Thapa from the International Center for Integrated Mountain Development. So we are there to serve the mountains and the mountain people. The International Center for Integrated Mountain Development has 8 regional member countries, and we work with our member countries to look at the issues that the mountain people are facing and the mountain environment is facing in the Hindu Kush Himalayas. As you can see, we have 8 member countries with very diverse range of conditions, range of socioeconomic and ecological conditions. So why is it called the third pole? I think this is the message I would like to convey to you, that the third pole probably is called, perhaps, the central pole. You have the North Pole, South Pole, and the Central Pole, and the Central Pole is very, very important. It has the largest ice mass outside of the 2 poles, 54,000 glaciers, 60,000 square kilometer of ice. That is around 6,000 cubic kilometer of ice reserve. So that is huge. So this is a global asset. As Dr. Sakaguchi mentioned, it supports the livelihood of close to 2 billion people. That is 1/4 of humanity. Particularly water, the ecosystem services that it provides, for food, for energy, for industries. So it's the source of 10 of Asia's major river systems. You name it, Ganges, the Brahmaputra, the Indus. So all these rivers are transboundary in nature. So it is very, very important for our 8 countries, 8 member countries, to work together to ensure that the glaciers keep feeding these rivers so that the rivers can keep supporting these 2 billion people living in the mountains as well as downstream. Now, what is our role? How does ICIMOD work? We have 1 foot in research and 1 foot in development. So the conversations that have been going on, science to policy and practice. So we try to gather evidence-based information and good practices, solutions, and try to take it to the policymakers and to the practitioners. Our role is to facilitate exchange of knowledge and information. Also, as a neutral convener, we are very pleased that our scientists and policymakers from India, China, Pakistan, otherwise a very difficult geopolitical region, could still come together and talk to each other, talk with each other, work with each other, and find common solutions. So, as I said, our focus is on environmental issues, but with socio-economic implications. So we are now looking at climate change, we are looking at biodiversity loss, we are looking at ecosystem degradation, water risk, and air pollution. So again, this was something inspired by President Grimson way back in 2013. He's not only a champion of the Arctic Circle, but also an inspiration to the Hindu Kush Himalayan region. So based on his recommendation, we carried out this comprehensive assessment of the Hindu Kush Himalayan and brought this report in 2019. So the key recommendations, the key findings from this is that the Himalayas, the Hindu Kush Himalaya, because of the elevation, is going to heat up much faster, and everything is going to happen here before anywhere else because of the elevation. So even if the world manages to keep the temperatures below 1.5 degrees Celsius, it's not going to happen in the Hindu Kush Himalayan region. It's going to be much hotter. So this is a typical example of what is happening to the glaciers up there. You can see this in 1923, and in 2007, the glaciers have retreated by 100 meters. So this is happening across the Hindu Kush Himalayas, except in the western part, where we have this Karakoram anomaly, where it is actually expanding. So the consequences is more and more disasters, and 1/3 of these disasters are in the form of floods. I will not elaborate too much on this. My colleague will dwell on it a little more. So the key recommendations from this assessment is that, above all, we need regional cooperation. Cooperation among our member countries, but also with other regions and globally. And we need to work together if we are to keep the temperatures below 1.5 degrees Celsius, if we are to protect the ecosystems, and if we are to achieve the sustainable development goals. And we are very optimistic that our regional member countries have shown the appetite to come and work together. So there has been an agreement, a declaration was signed in 2020, October, to look at the possibility of perhaps working something like the Arctic Circle, the Arctic Council, and see how we can enhance cooperation. So this is a declaration signed by all our 8 member countries. Now we have come up with a new strategy, a new medium-term action plan. I will not elaborate too much on this because of the time, but our vision is to go for a greener, more inclusive and climate-resilient Hindu Kush Himalayas. And we have organized ourselves in such a way that we would be able to tell you after 10 years or after 6 years, I would say, what is happening to the Hindu Kush Himalayan glaciers, what is happening to the 10 major river systems, what is happening to the ecosystems, what is happening to the livelihood of the people living in the Hindu Kush Himalayas. So we consider this region, the place with the highest mountain ranges in the world, as the pulse of the planet. And there is urgent need to protect the pulse, because what happens in the Himalayas, what happens in the Hindu Kush, what happens in the high mountains doesn't stop there. As yesterday someone I heard, what happens in the Arctic doesn't stop there. It affects the rest of the world. You might even expect a human tsunami. Where would the 2 billion people go? Maybe to Norway, maybe to Sweden, to US. So I think the consequences are global. The impact is up there in the 3rd pole. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And next, Raja Bahadur Thapa, Senior Remote Sensing and Geoinformation Specialist, ICIMOD, will explain more precisely. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. This is very first time for me to attend this conference. And I got the message from these sessions from yesterday and today that we all live in one world, and land and oceans are interconnected. So the things happens in Arctic It's not confined within the circle, it goes beyond. So I think that also applies to Hindu Kush Himalaya region that Pema already presented. So that gives me the context that I can skip many of these slides because a lot of scientific discussions were there in the morning and also yesterday. Let me confine in the mountain. I'm from Thapa and grew up in the bed of Everest, drinking very high quality water. But the high quality water is no more there now. And all the international negotiations and all the international reports says that the mountains are more highly vulnerable place in this world. And the ICIMOD published this HKH assessment report that we already introduced with you. And then what we see that if we think of 1.5 degrees centigrade scenario, then 1/3 of the glacier will be gone by 21st century. But that is not the case. In the current scenario, the glacier will not be there. Only 2/3 of the glaciers will be going away. So there are a lot of challenges, a lot of issues in there. We also hear a lot of challenges also there in Arctic during this conference. There are a lot of progress also made and a lot of commitments also there, including research vessels development by Japan and also continuing the research contribution from China and Korea. We have heard a lot of things today. And if we look at this scenario, then we can estimate. We collected all the data. We processed those data using satellite Earth observations as well as from the field. Then we come up with this, that in different locations of Hindu Kush Himalaya are facing this glacier melting in different volume. So this is one example of that mapping that we performed, and then we monitor. We also compile all those informations, data, and now making all those data publicly available for others to use. So not only melting the glacier, but that also create this lake, glacial lake, which brings a lot of disasters in our Himalayan regions. So this is these are the status of glacial lake, we identified 47 lakes are potentially danger in place. So there are 3,624 glaciers we identified through the mapping process. And this region is monsoon climate dominated. That brings a lot of things there. In some place, there are a lot of drought, and some place, a lot of water. That brings a lot of floods there. We also projected these extremes floodings in the rivers in Himalayas. Then we identified that by 21st century, there is a different density of these extreme floods will be happening. A lot of flood events were recorded in different countries in Hindu Kush Himalayan, that ICIMOD regional member countries. And then this is very recent one. Many of you maybe still remember this Chamoli flood, which happens in February 2021. We supported to the early response to that flood by the assessment. And then there is a Melamchi flood also happened, which is cascading disaster. It's a multi-hazard approach. So we need to think of it. There are many other issues will bring from those disasters. Then the Pakistan flood is very recent one. We also responded, provided the loss and damage assessment, statistics and reports there to support Pakistan government. Hindu Kush Himalaya region also facing drought there in some parts. We developed some tools, decision support tools that can support the government of the country to identify the drought area. Then there are also active fires happening in our regions. So we also provide the data, whatever data we have collected, and then process the informations. Those are also available through our repository systems. It's accessible. And then, so we also collect this cryosphere permanent monitoring there, and we collect, we go there in the field to collect the data and also available those data for wider users. And we have we develop weather monitoring assessment tools that provides a lot of information on temperature, rainfall, lightning, supercell plots for Hindu-Kush Himalaya regions, so that people, the country will take those things. So let me stop here, these presentations, but with the message that I want to bring in this presentation is we need to work together with regional focus, solution-driven, evidence-based research, co-development of tools and services, capability strengthening of the stakeholders in the regions, and also we need to advocate the issues and solutions in regional and global forum. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Since we are limited to have a 15 minutes session, but still this clock shows 15 minutes left. I'm not sure, what happened. But anyway, please keep it in mind, the word term ICIMOD, and also 1.9 billion people will be suffered with the same problem of Arctic ice melt, glacier melt, and common topic. And but if we lost 1.9 billion people, that is a real disaster which will affect globally. So please think about this problem is really serious and start taking action. I promise you, we Sasakawa Peace Foundation will start taking action for this problem. Thank you very much.